When his ex walked in with a baby at their luxury party, the millionaire's wife didn't flinch. Her silence was the start of her revenge. Welcome back, my amazing family and friends. If you're ready to dive into this unforgettable story, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Tomorrow, I'll bring you another incredible tale you absolutely can't miss. Let's get started, and don't forget to like and share to help our community grow. The thing about perfect moments is that they're always borrowed time. I should have known this 3 hours ago, when I watched Julian's hand tremble as he fastened the diamond bracelet around my wrist. Should have paid attention to the way his jaw tensed when his phone buzzed during our pre-party champagne. Should have questioned why he kept glancing at the ballroom entrance like he was expecting a ghost. But I didn't. Because I was too busy being Naomi Sterling, née Washington, the girl from Detroit's East Side who'd clawed her way through Howard University, built a boutique PR firm from nothing, and somehow ended up married to Julian Sterling, one of Manhattan's most eligible bachelors. Well, formally eligible. He'd been mine for exactly 2 years, 3 months, and 14 days. Not that I was counting. You look stunning, Julian murmured, his breath warm against my ear as the photographer positioned us for another shot. His hand rested on the small of my back, proprietary and gentle. Absolutely radiant. I smiled, the kind of smile I'd perfected in boardrooms and charity galas. Confident, controlled, giving nothing away. My burgundy gown, custom Versace, caught the light from the crystal chandeliers overhead. The plaza's grand ballroom glittered around us like a jewelry box, 500 guests mingling beneath ceilings painted with mythological scenes. Gods and mortals. Hubris and consequence. It's your night, I said, adjusting his bow tie though it didn't need adjusting. 40 years young, and you barely look 35. He laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. Those ocean blue eyes that had convinced me, 2 years ago, that love could transcend the differences in our worlds. That a black woman from a city that had forgotten her could build a life with a white man whose family tree had roots older than the Republic. Our night, he corrected, pulling me closer. I wouldn't be here without you. It was true, in a way. When we'd met at a charity fundraiser, him, the principal donor, me, the publicist managing the event, Julian had been emerging from a bitter divorce. Victoria Ashford Sterling had taken half his assets and all his trust, leaving him hollow-eyed and cynical. I'd seen past the armor to the man beneath, vulnerable, surprisingly funny, desperate to be seen as more than a bank account with a heartbeat. I'd put him back together, piece by careful piece. And somewhere in that reconstruction, I'd fallen in love with my own creation. Speech in 20 minutes, his assistant, Grace, whispered as she glided past. The mayor just arrived. I nodded, scanning the crowd with practiced efficiency. Senators, CEOs, old money rubbing shoulders with new. My clients formed a constellation in the corner. I dressed them all, coached them on talking points, turned them from scandals waiting to happen into respectable pillars of society. My reputation had been built on making people look good, on controlling narratives before they controlled you. Control. That was the key to everything. Naomi Sterling. Karen Hutchinson air-kissed both my cheeks, her Botox-frozen face arranged in what might have been delight. This is simply divine. You've outdone yourself. Thank you, Karen. I'd planned every detail myself, the white orchids cascading from gold urns, the string quartet playing Vivaldi, the menu designed by a James Beard winner. Julian had wanted simple. I'd given him legendary. Because that's what we were supposed to be, legendary. And how is married life treating Manhattan's most talked-about power couple? Karen's eyes gleamed with the hunger of a woman who trafficked in gossip like currency. Every day is a gift, I replied smoothly. The lie tasted like champagne, expensive and effervescent, gone before you could examine it too closely. Julian's phone buzzed again. I felt him stiffen beside me. Excuse me, he muttered, already moving toward the balcony. Just need to take this. I watched him go, his broad shoulders cutting through the crowd with the easy confidence of someone who'd never been told he didn't belong. My own shoulders, bare except for the delicate straps of my gown, still carried the phantom weight of every boardroom where I'd been the only black face, every gala where society matrons had mistaken me for the help. Men and their phones, Karen tittered. I swear, they're worse than teenagers. I sipped my champagne, letting the bubbles dissolve on my tongue. Through the French doors, I could see Julian on the balcony, his phone pressed to his ear, his free hand raking through his dark hair. Even from here, I could read the tension in his posture. Something was wrong. Naomi. My best friend, Simone, materialized at my elbow, resplendent in emerald silk. She'd flown in from Chicago for this, leaving her own thriving law practice for the weekend. Girl, you need to see the gift table. Someone sent a Banksy. An actual Banksy. Probably from the Vanderbilts, I said absently, still watching Julian. They've been trying to get him on their foundation board. Simone followed my gaze. What's wrong? Nothing. Everything. He's been off all evening. Pre-speech jitters. Maybe. But Julian had given hundreds of speeches. He'd testified before Congress, for God's sake. He didn't get nervous about addressing a room full of people who worshipped at the altar of his success. Naomi, you're doing that thing where you spiral. Simone gripped my arm. Stop. You've thrown the party of the year. Your husband adores you. Your firm just signed 3 new clients. Life is good. Let yourself enjoy it. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But there was this feeling, this prickling at the base of my skull, like the air before a thunderstorm. The kind of intuition that had saved me more times than I could count. In business, in life, in the years before Julian when I'd had to navigate the world with nothing but my wits and my will. Julian returned, his face carefully blank. Sorry about that. Everything okay? I searched his expression for cracks. Fine. Just business. He smiled, but it was a stranger's smile. Polished. Practiced. Nothing like the grin he gave me in the mornings when we were tangled in Egyptian cotton sheets, the world still hours away. The string quartet transitioned into something brighter, more celebratory. Guests began gravitating toward the stage area where Julian would give his speech, thank everyone for coming, and pretend that this obscene display of wealth was about gratitude rather than status. Ladies and gentlemen, the MC's voice boomed through the sound system. If you could please direct your attention to the stage. That's when the ballroom doors opened. Not the gentle swing of a latecomer trying to slip in unnoticed. No, these doors opened with purpose, with drama, pushed wide by a woman in white. White gown. White heels. White cashmere blanket wrapped around the bundle in her arms. The conversations didn't stop all at once. It was more like a wave, starting at the entrance and rolling toward us, a hush that swallowed laughter, swallowed music, swallowed the air itself. I knew who she was before I saw her face. Victoria Ashford Sterling. Julian's ex-wife. The woman he'd spent 2 years trying to forget, the shadow that had haunted the early days of our relationship. Blonde, elegant, with a kind of generational wealth that made even Julian's fortune look nouveau riche. And she was walking toward us with a baby in her arms. Julian's champagne flute slipped from his fingers. The crystal hit the marble floor, not shattering, just cracking. A hairline fracture that spread like a lie being born. Julian, Victoria said, her voice carrying across the silent ballroom with perfect diction. She stopped 10 feet away, close enough for intimacy, far enough for theater. I'm sorry to interrupt. But we need to talk. My hand found Julian's arm. His muscles were stone beneath my fingers. Victoria. His voice was barely recognizable. What are you doing here? She looked at me then, her grey eyes sharp as glass. A smile played at her lips, not cruel, exactly, but knowing. The smile of someone holding all the cards. Hello, Naomi. You look lovely. She shifted the bundle in her arms, and I saw a tiny fist emerge from the blanket. Pink and perfect. I do apologize for the timing. But Julian and I have some unfinished business. The baby made a sound, not quite a cry, just a small protest against the tension crackling through the air. Victoria turned back to Julian, and her voice dropped into something softer, more intimate. Something meant to cut. Julian, this is your daughter. Her name is Lily. She's 3 months old. She paused, letting the words detonate. And she needs her father. The ballroom erupted, not in sound, but in movement. 500 necks craning, 500 pairs of eyes locked on us, 500 minds already composing the story they'd tell tomorrow. The scandal. The drama. The fall. I stood there, my hand still on Julian's arm, my smile still perfect, my world cracking like crystal on marble. And in that moment, watching my husband's face drain of color, watching his ex-wife cradle a child she claimed was his, watching 2 years of careful construction begin to crumble. I realized that perfect moments don't just end. They shatter. Time fractures in moments like these. 1 second, I was Naomi Sterling, wife of a millionaire, mistress of her domain, standing in a ballroom that glittered with my success. The next, I was Naomi Washington again, the girl who'd learned early that survival meant never letting them see you break. So I didn't break. Victoria. I stepped forward, placing myself between her and Julian. My voice was steady, projecting just enough to reach the front rows of our captive audience. What a surprise. Though I have to say, crashing a birthday party with a baby is a bold choice, even for you. A ripple of nervous laughter spread through the crowd. Good. Laughter meant they were still watching a performance, not a tragedy. Victoria's smile tightened. She hadn't expected me to speak first, to take control of the narrative. I'm not crashing, Naomi. I'm correcting a mistake. Julian has a right to know his daughter. His daughter. I let the words hang there, turning them over like a diamond under light, checking for flaws. That's quite a claim. And you chose tonight, in front of 500 witnesses, to make it. I chose tonight because he's been ignoring my calls for 3 months. Victoria's voice cracked, a calculated break, I noted. She was good. I chose tonight because Lily deserves a father who doesn't pretend she doesn't exist. Behind me, Julian made a sound. Not quite a word, just air escaping from lungs that had forgotten how to breathe. I didn't turn around. Didn't give him the chance to confirm or deny, to fumble for explanations that would only make this worse. Instead, I kept my eyes on Victoria, reading her like I read every client, every opponent, every person who'd ever underestimated me. She was wearing Chanel, last season's, but still respectable. Her hair was perfect, her makeup flawless. But there were shadows under her eyes that powder couldn't quite hide, and her left hand trembled slightly as she adjusted the baby's blanket. The baby, Lily, she'd called her, was real. The distress might be real too. But the timing? The theater of it all? That was strategy. Julian, Victoria said, her voice softer now, turning her attention back to him. Please. Just look at her. That's all I'm asking. I felt him move beside me, felt the pull of whatever history they shared dragging him toward her. Toward the baby. Toward the precipice. Don't. My hand caught his wrist. Not hard, but firm. A anchor. A warning. When I finally turned to face him, I kept my expression neutral. Not here. Not like this. His eyes met mine, blue and drowning. Naomi, whatever you're about to say, don't. I kept my voice low, meant only for him. Not until we know what's true. It's true. Victoria's voice cut through. She'd moved closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume, something floral and expensive that probably cost more than most people's rent. Look at her, Julian. Really look. The baby chose that moment to fuss, a small cry that pierced the ballroom's silence like a blade. Victoria shifted her, and the blanket fell away from a tiny face. Pink cheeks. Wisps of dark hair. And eyes, even from here, I could see they were blue. The crowd pressed closer. I could feel their hunger, their excitement. This was better than any soap opera, any reality show. This was real blood in the water, and they were sharks sensing a feeding frenzy. Julian took a step forward. Then another. I let him go, watching as he approached his ex-wife and the child she claimed was his. Watching as something crossed his face. Recognition? Fear? Guilt? She has your eyes, Victoria whispered. Your mother's chin. I know you see it. He reached out, one finger brushing the baby's cheek. The gesture was so tender, so instinctive, that something sharp lodged in my chest. This was a side of Julian I'd never seen. We'd talked about children. Someday, maybe, when the firm was more established, when we'd had more time to just be us. Apparently, someday had come early. Without me. When? Julian's voice was rough. When did you? Does it matter? Victoria's eyes glistened with tears. Real or performed, I couldn't tell. She's here now. She needs you. She stopped, swallowed. I can't do this alone anymore, Julian. I thought I could, but I can't. The confession hung in the air, vulnerable and damning. Around us, I could hear the whispers starting, the speculation already taking root. By tomorrow, this would be in page 6, on gossip blogs, dissected on morning shows. The narrative would write itself. Millionaire's ex returns with secret baby. New wife blindsided at birthday bash. Marriage in crisis. Unless I wrote a different story. A paternity test. My voice cut through the moment, clinical and clear. Before we go any further, before anyone makes any decisions, we need a paternity test. Victoria's head snapped toward me. Are you calling me a liar? I'm calling this situation unverified. I moved to stand beside Julian, reclaiming my space at his side. You show up here, at a public event, with a baby you claim is his. But claims aren't facts. And facts matter. She's 3 months old, Naomi. The timing. The timing is convenient. I kept my tone measured, reasonable. Letting anger show would make me look bitter, jealous. The wronged wife lashing out. So instead, I played the only card I had, logic. You could have reached out privately. Could have gone through lawyers. But instead, you chose maximum impact, maximum drama. Which makes me wonder what you're really after. A flush crept up Victoria's neck. Bingo. I'm after what my daughter deserves, she said, but her voice had lost some of its conviction. A father. Financial support. Stability. And you couldn't discuss financial support through proper channels because he wouldn't take my calls. Victoria's composure cracked, anger bleeding through. Because he's been hiding behind you, letting you run interference, pretending I don't exist. Is that true? I turned to Julian, who looked like he wanted the marble floor to swallow him whole. Have you been getting calls from Victoria? He opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. There were a few messages. But I thought she was just trying to reopen old wounds. I didn't know. You didn't know there was a baby. I finished for him. Or did you? The question hung between us, heavy as an anvil. This was the moment. The fulcrum on which everything would tip. If he'd known, if he'd kept this from me for 3 months while I planned his birthday party, while I smiled at his side at charity galas, while I made love to him in our king-sized bed. If he'd known, we were done. I suspected, he whispered. One of her messages. She said we needed to talk about consequences. About responsibilities. But I couldn't, I didn't want to believe. The honesty of it should have mattered. The fear in his voice, the genuine anguish. But all I could hear was the lie of omission. 3 months of suspecting he might have a child with another woman, and he'd said nothing. You suspected. My voice came out flat. Dead. And you kept it from me. I'm sorry. He reached for me, but I stepped back. Naomi, I'm so sorry. I didn't know how to tell you. Didn't know if it was even real. So you chose to tell me nothing. To let me throw you a party, to let me stand here in front of everyone we know, completely blindsided. I felt something hardening inside me, crystallizing into diamond-sharp clarity. That was your choice. Naomi. We should go, Victoria interjected, her voice taking on a note of false concern. This isn't the place for this conversation. Julian, why don't you come with me? We can talk privately, figure this out. He's not going anywhere with you. The words came out sharper than I intended. Around us, the crowd pressed even closer, phones out now, capturing every moment for posterity. For evidence. For entertainment. What would you do if you discovered your partner had been hiding something this big? How far would you go to protect your dignity? Drop your thoughts below. I read every comment. Victoria's smile turned pitying. Naomi, I understand this is difficult for you. But this isn't about you. This is about Lily. About what she needs. What she needs is verification. I pulled my phone from my clutch. Thank God for designer gowns with hidden pockets. I'm calling my attorney. We'll arrange for a paternity test tomorrow. Until then, Julian stays here. With me. You can't just. I can. I am. I met her eyes, letting her see the steel beneath my polish. You want to play this game in public, Victoria? Fine. But we play by rules. Legal rules. Not whatever drama you've staged here. For a moment, something flickered across her face. Respect? Annoyance? Whatever it was, it confirmed what I'd suspected. This was a power play. A calculated move to destabilize us, to leverage Julian's guilt and my humiliation into, what? Money? Reconciliation? A foothold back into his life? I don't need games, Victoria said quietly. I need my daughter's father to step up. But if you want a test, fine. We'll do a test. She shifted Lily in her arms, and the baby let out a small cry. But when it proves I'm telling the truth, and it will, I expect you both to do the right thing. The right thing, I repeated. And what exactly is that? Support. Involvement. Maybe more, depending on how Julian feels. Julian is married, I cut in. To me. Whatever involvement he has with this child, if she's his, will be determined by lawyers and mediators. Not by whatever fantasy you're entertaining about putting your family back together. Victoria's mask slipped, just for a second. Beneath the concerned mother, beneath the wronged woman, I saw ambition. Calculation. This wasn't just about the baby. This was about reclaiming territory, about proving that the life Julian had built with me could be dismantled as easily as she'd walked through those doors. She'd underestimated me. I'll be in touch, Victoria said, backing toward the exit. Through my lawyer. Julian, you know where to find me if you want to meet your daughter properly. She paused at the doors, turning back one last time. Happy birthday, by the way. I hope it's been everything you dreamed. Then she was gone, and the doors swung shut behind her with a soft click that might as well have been a gunshot. The ballroom erupted. Not in sound, not yet, but in energy. 500 people simultaneously pulling out phones, leaning toward their neighbors, composing texts and tweets that would reshape our narrative before we'd even left the building. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, my voice cutting through the chaos with the same clarity I used in client crisis meetings. I apologize for the interruption. As you can see, we have an unexpected situation to address. But this is still Julian's birthday, and we're not going to let drama derail a celebration. I forced a smile, bright and sharp as broken glass. Please, enjoy the food, the music, the open bar. We'll be back shortly. I didn't wait for responses. Just took Julian's arm, gripping it hard enough to bruise through his tuxedo, and walked toward the private suite the plaza had provided for the evening. Behind us, I could feel the eyes, could hear the whispers starting to build into a roar. We made it to the elevator before Julian's composure finally broke. Naomi, I swear to God, I didn't know for certain. Not here. The elevator doors slid open, and I pulled him inside. The moment they closed, sealing us into private silence, I let go of his arm and stepped back. Put distance between us. Not yet. But. I said not yet. I stared at my reflection in the elevator's mirrored walls. My makeup was still perfect. My hair was still perfect. My dress still draped like art against my body. I looked like the same woman who'd entered that ballroom 3 hours ago. But I wasn't. That woman had believed in fairy tales. Had believed that love could bridge any divide, that the life we'd built together was solid, unshakable. This woman, the one staring back at me with eyes too hard, too knowing, she understood the truth. Nothing was ever as solid as it looked. And everyone, given the right pressure, would crack. The question was, would I crack first, or would I use this fracture to my advantage? The elevator dinged. 40th floor. Our suite. Inside, I said. Now we talk. The suite was exactly as we'd left it 3 hours ago. Champagne chilling in silver buckets, rose petals scattered across the California King, my overnight bag tucked discreetly in the corner. A romantic sanctuary for after the party, where we'd planned to celebrate Julian's birthday properly. Privately. Now it felt like a crime scene waiting to happen. I kicked off my heels, Louboutin, red soles like blood on marble, and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows. Manhattan glittered below us, 40 stories of steel and ambition and people clawing their way toward something better. I'd been one of them once. Maybe I still was. Behind me, I heard Julian pouring something. Whiskey, probably. Liquid courage for a conversation he'd been avoiding for 3 months. Start talking, I said, not turning around. And Julian? Don't you dare lie to me. Not now. Not after what just happened. Silence. Then the clink of glass against glass. Her first message came in July, he said finally. Right after the 4th of July weekend. You remember, we were in the Hamptons with the Vanderbilts. I remembered. Sun-soaked days, salt air, Julian's hand in mine as we walked along the beach. He'd seemed distracted then, but I'd attributed it to work stress. His hedge fund had been in the middle of a complicated acquisition. How naive. What did the message say? Just that she needed to talk to me. That it was urgent. I ignored it. He paused. Then there was another one. And another. By August, she was calling twice a week. Always the same thing. We need to talk about consequences, about responsibility. But she never said what it was about, and You assumed she was playing games. I turned to face him. He stood by the bar cart, whiskey in hand, his bow tie undone and hanging loose around his neck. He looked older suddenly, the years he'd been hiding behind expensive skincare and personal trainers finally catching up. You assumed she was trying to manipulate you back into her life, so you blocked her out. Yes. He drained the whiskey, poured another. We'd been divorced for 3 years, Naomi. 3 years of her trying every trick in the book to get me back. Showing up at my office. Calling my mother. Making scenes at events we were both attending. I thought this was just another manipulation. I crossed the room, took the whiskey bottle from him before he could pour a third glass. Except this time, she actually had something real. Something that could destroy us. I didn't know. His voice cracked. I swear to God, I didn't know about the baby until tonight. But you suspected. I set the bottle down carefully, fighting the urge to throw it. The message about consequences. About responsibility. You're not stupid, Julian. You knew what that could mean. He sank onto the cream sofa, head in his hands. I couldn't let myself believe it. We'd been so careful when we were married, so deliberate about not having children until we were both ready. And then after the divorce, he stopped, and my stomach dropped. After the divorce, I repeated slowly. You slept with her after the divorce. Once. He looked up, eyes desperate. Once, Naomi. About a year before I met you. She showed up at my apartment drunk, crying about how she'd made a mistake, how she wanted me back. And I was weak. Lonely. It meant nothing. It meant a baby, apparently. If Lily is even mine. Oh, she's yours. I moved to the bar cart, poured myself the whiskey he'd been hoarding. I saw your face when you looked at her. You recognized something. Maybe it's her eyes, maybe it's just guilt. But you believe she's yours. He didn't deny it. Just sat there, looking broken and small and nothing like the confident man who'd swept me off my feet 2 years ago. The man who'd promised me the world, who'd made me believe that our love story could be different from all the cautionary tales I'd grown up hearing. Black girl, white man, money and power. It should have been a disaster from the start. Turned out, I'd just been on borrowed time. What do you want me to say? Julian whispered. That I'm sorry? I'm sorry, Naomi. I'm so goddamn sorry. But I can't change what happened. If Lily is mine. When Lily is yours, I corrected. Let's not pretend the paternity test is going to say anything else. When she's mine, he amended, I'll have to step up. Be a father. Figure out custody, child support, all of it. But that doesn't change how I feel about you. Doesn't change us. I laughed, a harsh, brittle sound that didn't belong to the woman I'd been this morning. Doesn't change us. Julian, your ex-wife just walked into a room full of Manhattan's elite and announced you have a secret baby. Do you have any idea what that means? For you? For me? For my business? Your business is built on reputation. I drained the whiskey, welcomed the burn. On the idea that I can manage crises, control narratives, turn disasters into triumphs. How the hell am I supposed to sell that when I couldn't even see the disaster in my own marriage? This isn't your fault. No, it's yours. But that won't matter to my clients. To the society pages. To everyone who watched that scene tonight. I paced the suite, my mind already cataloguing the damage. By tomorrow, there will be articles questioning my judgment. How could she not know? What kind of PR expert gets blindsided by her own husband's baby mama? Clients will wonder if I'm too distracted to handle their accounts. Competitors will circle like vultures. Then we'll weather it together. He stood, reaching for me. We'll face this head on, show them we're united. I stepped back before he could touch me. United? We're not united, Julian. You kept this from me. You suspected you might have a child with another woman, and you said nothing. Do you know what that makes me? Naomi. It makes me a fool. The word tasted like ashes. It makes me the woman who was too busy playing happy wife to notice her husband was hiding life-altering secrets. And that's not a role I intend to play much longer. Something shifted in his expression. Fear, maybe. Or realization. What are you saying? I'm saying I need to think. I moved toward my overnight bag, started pulling out my phone charger, my laptop. I'm saying that whatever happens next, I need to be smart about it. Strategic. And I can't do that while I'm standing here looking at you. You're leaving. He crossed the room in 3 strides. Naomi, please. Don't walk out. We can work through this. Can we? I turned to face him fully. Because from where I'm standing, the man I married made me look like a fool in front of 500 people. And the worst part? You didn't even do it intentionally. You just didn't think I was worth the truth. That's not. Isn't it? I zipped my bag closed. You got those messages, Julian. You suspected something was wrong. But instead of coming to me, instead of trusting me enough to navigate it together, you handled it alone. You decided I didn't need to know. And that tells me everything about what you really think of this marriage. The truth of it hung between us, sharp and undeniable. He'd never fully let me in. Never trusted that the girl from Detroit's East Side could handle his complicated, messy, privilege-soaked problems. I'd been an accessory, a beautiful distraction from his painful divorce. But a true partner? An equal? No. My phone buzzed. Then again. And again. I pulled it out, watched the notifications flood in, texts from Simone, from clients, from reporters who'd somehow gotten my private number. The feeding frenzy had begun. One text stood out, unknown number. Naomi, this is Victoria. I'm sorry about tonight. Can we talk? Just us. I think we could help each other. I stared at the message, my mind spinning. Victoria wanted to talk. Victoria, who'd just humiliated me in public, who'd weaponized a baby to destroy my marriage. She wanted to talk. Who is it? Julian asked. I looked up at him. This man I'd loved. This man who'd betrayed me through weakness and cowardice if not malice. And I made a decision. No one important. I pocketed the phone. I'm going to Simone's for the night. Don't call me. Don't text. Don't show up at her door. When the paternity results come back, we'll figure out next steps. Until then, I need space. Naomi, please. Goodbye, Julian. I didn't look back as I walked out. Didn't let myself feel the tears burning behind my eyes until I was safely in the elevator, descending away from him, away from the shattered remains of our perfect life. By the time I reached the lobby, I dried my face and composed my expression. The mask was back in place, flawless, unbreakable. A few guests from the party milled about, their eyes widening when they saw me. I smiled, waved, kept walking toward the exit where my driver was already waiting. Mrs. Sterling, he said, opening the door. Where to? I started to give him Simone's address. Then stopped. Actually, I said, pulling out my phone and reading Victoria's message again. Take me to the Upper West Side. I'll give you the address. Because here's what I'd learned, climbing from Detroit's East Side to Manhattan's penthouses, you don't win by playing defense. You don't win by being the victim, by wallowing in hurt and betrayal. You win by taking control of the narrative. By making the first move. By turning your enemy's weapon into your own. Victoria wanted to talk. Fine. We'd talk. 20 minutes later, I stood outside a brownstone on West 74th Street. Elegant but not ostentatious. The kind of place that whispered old money rather than screaming it. Lights glowed in the second-floor windows. I texted the number. I'm outside. The response came immediately. Second floor. Doors open. Smart. No doorman to witness this meeting. No security cameras in a pre-war walk-up. Whatever Victoria wanted to discuss, she wanted it private. I climbed the stairs. Each step deliberates. My Versace gown whispered against the worn wood. By the time I reached the second floor, I'd run through a dozen scenarios, 100 possible conversations. None of them prepared me for what I found. Victoria answered the door in yoga pants and an oversized sweater, her blonde hair in a messy bun. No makeup, no armor. She looked tired, young, almost vulnerable. "You came," she said, surprise evident in her voice. "You asked." I stepped inside, taking in the apartment. Modest by our standards, 1 bedroom, maybe 800 square feet. But clean, tastefully decorated. And in the corner, a bassinet where Lily slept, her tiny chest rising and falling. "I didn't think you would," Victoria admitted, closing the door. "After tonight, I thought you'd want to scratch my eyes out." I considered it. I moved to the window, putting distance between us. But that's not really my style. I prefer more sophisticated methods of destroying people. She laughed, a real laugh, not the practice trill from the party. I can respect that. "Why am I here, Victoria?" "Because we're both smart women in a situation that benefits neither of us." She moved to the small kitchen, poured 2 glasses of wine without asking if I wanted any. "And because I think we can help each other." Help each other. I accepted the wine, didn't drink it. "You just humiliated me in front of everyone I know. Threatened my marriage. Damaged my reputation. And you think we can help each other?" "I think we're both being played." Victoria sat on her sofa, curled her legs beneath her. "By Julian. By the system. By the expectations that say I should compete with you for scraps of his attention while he gets to have everything." I studied her, looking for the trap. "What are you proposing?" "An alliance." She met my eyes. "You give me what I need, financial security for Lily, a father who's present, and I give you what you need." "Which is?" "Revenge." Victoria's smile was sharp. The kind that doesn't just hurt Julian. The kind that makes him understand exactly what is lost. What he threw away through cowardice and lies. My heart rate kicked up, even as I kept my face neutral. "Keep talking." "Julian's hedge fund is about to close a major deal," Victoria said. "A merger with Ashford Capital. My family's company. My father is the deciding vote." I'd known about the merger. It would triple Julian's net worth, cement his position as one of Manhattan's financial elites. He'd been working on it for months. "And?" I prompted. "And I can kill the deal." Victoria leaned forward. "One conversation with my father, and Julian loses everything he's been building. His reputation. His future. All of it, gone." "Why would you do that?" I asked. "If he loses his money, he can't support Lily." "There are other ways to get support. Child support is calculated on income, sure. But assets? Existing wealth." She shrugged. "There are creative legal strategies. My lawyers are very good." "This isn't just about money for you," I realized. "You want to destroy him." "I want him to feel what I felt." Victoria's mask slipped, and I saw the rage beneath. "When he threw me away after 10 years of marriage because I wasn't young enough, fun enough, easy enough anymore. When he paraded you around like an upgrade, like proof that he'd won at life. When he refused to even acknowledge his own daughter." The bitterness in her voice was real, raw, and it called to something equally raw in me, the humiliation of tonight, the betrayal of his silence, the knowledge that I'd been a fool. "What would you need from me?" I asked carefully. "Public support." Victoria set down her wine glass. "When I go to court for custody, for proper child support, I need the narrative to be on my side. And right now, with the way tonight looked, people will see me as the scorned ex-wife playing dirty. But if you, the current wife, the PR expert, if you corroborated my story, showed sympathy, maybe even implied that Julian has a pattern of dishonesty, I'd be weaponizing my own humiliation," I finished. "Turning it into ammunition against him." "Exactly." Victoria stood, moved to stand beside me at the window. "Look, I know we're not friends. I know I just crashed your party and ruined your night. But the enemy of my enemy is sometimes still an enemy, I cut in. You want to use me, Victoria. Let's not pretend this is about sisterhood or solidarity. And you want to use me right back. She gestured toward the sleeping baby. Because that's what smart women do. We use whatever tools we have. And right now, we're both tools that could destroy Julian Sterling. The question is, do we do it separately and risk him playing us against each other? Or do we do it together and guarantee he loses everything? I looked down at Lily, still sleeping peacefully in her bassinet. An innocent in all of this. A child who hadn't asked to be born into this mess, to be a weapon in her mother's revenge plot. Just like I hadn't asked to be humiliated tonight. I need time, I said finally. To think. To strategize. To figure out if aligning with you is brilliant or suicidal. Fair enough. Victoria walked me to the door. But Naomi? Whatever you decide, the paternity test results will be back in 72 hours. After that, everything changes. Julian will either step up or step back. The media will either paint me as a victim or a villain. And you'll either be the woman who stood by her man or the woman who was too smart to stay with a liar. I paused in the doorway. If I do this, if I even consider this, I need something from you first. Name it. The truth about that night. I turned to face her. The night you slept with Julian after the divorce. I need to know if it was really a drunken mistake or if you planned it. If you got pregnant on purpose. Victoria's expression didn't change. Would it matter? Yes. She considered this, then nodded slowly. It wasn't planned. I really was drunk, really was devastated about the divorce. But when I found out I was pregnant. She paused. I won't lie, part of me was happy. Part of me thought maybe it would bring him back. But he was already gone by then. Already with you. The honesty surprised me. So you carried Lily to term, hoping. Hoping he'd come back. Hoping I'd matter again. Victoria's voice softened. Pathetic, right? But loneliness makes us all a little pathetic. You'll see. The prediction sent ice down my spine. I should go. Think about what I said. Victoria opened the door wider. We could burn his whole world down, Naomi. Make him understand what it feels like to lose everything. All we have to do is work together. I didn't answer. Just walked down the stairs, out into the October night where my driver was waiting. As the car pulled away from the curb, I looked back at the brownstone, at the light still glowing in Victoria's window. An alliance with my husband's ex-wife. Using a baby as leverage. Destroying the man I'd loved, still loved, despite everything. It was ruthless. Calculated. Exactly the kind of maneuver that had built my career. And God help me, I was considering it. My phone buzzed. Simone, girl, where are you? Everyone's losing their minds. Another text, this one from a number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Sterling, this is Rebecca Chen from the New York Times. I'd love to get your comment on tonight's events for a piece I'm writing. And another, Naomi, it's Karen Hutchinson. I hope you're okay, darling. Call me if you need to talk. Or if you want to give me the exclusive story, joking. Unless. The sharks were circling. The narrative was being written. And I had maybe 24 hours before it solidified into something I couldn't control. I pulled up my contacts, scrolled to my lawyer's number. Then paused. What did I really want here? Justice? Revenge? Or just to stop feeling like the biggest fool in Manhattan? The answer, I realized, was all three. Change of plans, I told my driver. Take me to my office. If Victoria wanted to burn Julian's world down, fine. But I'd do it my way. With my rules. And by the time I was done, everyone would know exactly who Naomi Sterling was. Not the fool who got blindsided. Not the wife who stood by her lying husband. But the woman who turned her greatest humiliation into her greatest victory. My office building was dark except for the 23rd floor, my floor. Even at midnight, the Sterling Communications suite glowed like a lighthouse, and I was the keeper of the flame. I'd built this firm from nothing. One client, one crisis, one perfectly crafted narrative at a time. From a shared WeWork space to a full floor in Midtown, from just me and a laptop to 15 employees who trusted me to lead them. This was mine in a way nothing else had ever been. Not even my marriage. I badged into the office, my heels clicking against marble as I made my way to my corner suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, custom furniture, awards lining the walls. Evidence of every battle I'd won, every reputation I'd saved. Time to save my own. I pulled off my gown, Versace would forgive me, and changed into the spare clothes I kept in my office closet. Black slacks, silk blouse, blazer. Armor for the war I was about to wage. Then I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and began to strategize. Situation analysis. Julian's ex-wife has appeared with a baby, claiming he's the father. Public humiliation at a high-profile event equals maximum media exposure. Paternity test scheduled for tomorrow. Results in 72 hours. Victoria wants an alliance to destroy Julian. My reputation is at stake. Clients will be watching how I handle this. Victoria's leverage. The baby, probably Julian's based on his reaction. Her family's company equals key to Julian's merger. Public sympathy, wronged single mother versus wealthy millionaire. My humiliation, the new wife who didn't know. Julian's vulnerabilities. Lied by omission for 3 months. Hedge fund merger depends on Ashford Capital. Public image matters for his business. Genuine guilt about the situation. Still in love with me, exploitable. My assets. PR expertise equals narrative control. Business connections throughout Manhattan. Clean reputation. Until tonight. Intelligence about both parties. The moral high ground. I stared at the analysis, pieces of a puzzle that needed to fit together into something devastating. Something that would make Julian understand exactly what his cowardice had cost him. But Victoria's plan, destroying him financially, weaponizing a child, it felt wrong. Felt like becoming the villain in my own story. There had to be another way. Something more surgical. More elegant. My phone buzzed. Simone, Naomi Washington Sterling, if you don't call me in the next 5 minutes, I'm filing a missing person report. I smiled despite everything and called her. Finally. She answered on the first ring. Where the hell are you? I've been losing my mind. After you left, the party completely fell apart. Everyone was speculating, recording everything. Girl, it's already on TMZ. I'm at the office. The office? Naomi, it's midnight. You should be, I don't know, crying, drinking, keying Julian's car. Normal breakup behavior. I'm not broken up with Julian. Yet, I added silently. I'm strategizing. A pause. Then, oh God. You've got that tone. The one you use when you're about to destroy someone's entire existence. I prefer manage a crisis, I said. And speaking of which, I need your legal brain. Hypothetically, if someone wanted to protect themselves in a divorce while also ensuring their spouse faced appropriate consequences for lying. We're not talking hypothetically, are we? No. Simone exhaled slowly. Okay. First, don't do anything rash. Second, document everything. Every text, every call, every conversation. Third, separate your finances immediately. Credit cards, bank accounts, everything. And fourth. She paused. Fourth, you need to decide what you actually want. Revenge or justice. Because they're not the same thing. What's the difference? Revenge is about making him hurt. Justice is about making things right. Simone's voice softened. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But Naomi, whatever you do next will define you. Make sure it's something you can live with. I thought about Victoria's offer. About burning Julian's world down, taking everything from him. It would feel good in the moment. God, it would feel amazing. But afterward? When the dust settled and I was left with the ashes of what we'd built. What if I could do both? I asked. What if I could make him face consequences while also protecting myself and doing something good? I'm listening. An idea was forming. Risky, complicated, but possible. The baby. Lily. Victoria's using her as a weapon, but that child didn't ask for any of this. What if, I stopped, worked through the logistics? What if I could secure Lily's future while also making Julian understand the gravity of what is done? You've lost me. Julian's merger. The one with Ashford Capital. It's worth approximately $300 million. I pulled up the financial documents on my computer. If it goes through, Julian becomes one of the wealthiest men in Manhattan. If it doesn't, He loses years of work and most of his leverage in the industry. And Victoria can kill the deal because her father runs Ashford Capital. Exactly. She wants to use that leverage to destroy him. But what if instead of destroying the deal, we restructured it? Simone was quiet for a moment. Then, keep talking. What if, as a condition of the merger, Julian had to establish a trust fund for Lily? A significant one. Enough to ensure she never wants for anything: education, healthcare, housing, everything. And what if the terms of that trust required him to be an active father, with custody arrangements overseen by mediators? You're essentially forcing him to step up, while also protecting Lily from being used as a pawn. I was typing now, making notes, the strategy crystallizing. Victoria gets financial security for her daughter, but not through destruction. Julian keeps his merger, but pays a price that actually matters. And you get to control the narrative, Simone finished. You become the woman who protected a child even after her husband betrayed her. The wife who had enough grace to ensure an innocent baby was cared for. Exactly. The pieces were falling into place. I'll look like a saint. Julian will look like he got off easy, but will actually be locked into 18 years of accountability. And Victoria won't go for it, Simone warned. She doesn't want Julian to step up. She wants him to suffer. Then I'll have to convince her that this is a better kind of suffering. I checked my watch. 12:47 a.m. Long-term, sustainable suffering. The kind where he has to watch his daughter grow up, has to be present, has to actually be a father instead of just writing checks. For a man who spent his whole life avoiding emotional responsibility, that's a life sentence. Simone laughed. You're diabolical. I'm strategic. I stood, pacing my office. But I need leverage to make this work. I need something that forces both Victoria and Julian to accept my terms. What about the media narrative? Simone asked. Right now, the story is that Victoria blindsided you both with a secret baby. But what if you reframe it? What if you reveal that Julian knew, that he hid it from you, that he was planning to? I don't know, what would make him look worst? An idea sparked. That he was planning to pay Victoria off. To make her and Lily disappear. Was he? No. But he could have been. And in the absence of him speaking up first, the silence will damn him. I was already composing the statement in my head. I release something tonight, grief-stricken but dignified. I reveal that my husband knew about this child, that he chose to hide it rather than face it honestly. That I'm devastated but committed to ensuring Lily is cared for, because no child should suffer for their parents' mistakes. You paint yourself as the hero. I paint myself as the adult in the room. I pulled up my social media. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. All still blowing up with speculation from tonight. By morning, the narrative will shift. It won't be poor Naomi got blindsided. It'll be Naomi Sterling is handling this with incredible grace. My clients will see strength, not weakness. And Julian will be trapped, Simone said. He can't deny knowing without looking worse. He can't attack you without looking like a monster. And he can't refuse to take care of Lily without proving everything you're implying. Exactly. I sat back down, fingers flying across the keyboard. I need you to draft trust documents. Make them ironclad. Education fund, healthcare, living expenses, therapy, everything a child could need. And I need it done by tomorrow afternoon. Naomi, that's possible if you start now. I softened my voice. Please, Simone. I need this. I need to take control before the story controls me. A long pause. Then, send me the merger details. I'll have something drafted by noon. Thank you. I closed my eyes. And Simone, when this is over, remind me that I'm not actually made of stone. Oh honey, I know you're not. Her voice was gentle. That's why you're doing this. Because underneath all that strategy and control, you actually care about that baby. You care about doing the right thing, even when it costs you. She hung up, and I stared at my reflection in the dark window. Was she right? Was this about protecting Lily, or was it about proving I was better than Victoria, smarter than Julian, capable of winning even when I'd lost everything? Maybe it was both. I opened a blank document and began typing. Statement from Naomi Sterling. Tonight, at what should have been a joyful celebration, my husband's ex-wife appeared with a child she claims is his. Like many of you, I was shocked. Unlike some of you may assume, I was not entirely surprised. Over the past several months, my husband has been aware of potential paternity issues but chose not to share this information with me. His reasons are his own, and I will not speculate on them here. What I will say is this: a child's welfare should never be collateral damage in adult conflicts. If this baby is indeed my husband's daughter, and I believe she is, then she deserves every advantage, every opportunity, every ounce of love and support her parents can provide. Regardless of what happens to my marriage, I am committed to ensuring this child is protected and cared for. I ask for privacy as we navigate the legal and personal complexities ahead. I also ask that you direct your judgment where it belongs, on the adults who created this situation, not the innocent child caught in the middle. With grace and resolve, Naomi Sterling. I read it 3 times, adjusting words, perfecting the tone. Dignified but hurt. Strong but vulnerable. The kind of statement that would make people root for me, sympathize with me, while also subtly destroying Julian's credibility. By the time the sun rose, this would be everywhere. And by the time Julian woke up, the narrative would already be set in stone. My finger hovered over the post button. Once I did this, there was no going back. This would be public, permanent, the first strike in a war I was declaring. But Julian had made his choice when he kept Victoria's messages secret. When he'd suspected he had a daughter and said nothing. When he'd let me plan his birthday party, smile at his side, play the perfect wife while knowing our foundation was built on lies. I hit post. Then I called Victoria. She answered on the second ring, voice thick with sleep. Naomi. Check your social media, I said. And then call me back. We need to talk about my terms. I hung up before she could respond. 60 seconds later, my phone exploded. Texts, calls, notifications. The statement was spreading like wildfire. Shared, commented on, analyzed. I watched the reactions roll in. Naomi Sterling is a Class A CT. Meanwhile Julian Sterling is trash, she's protecting a child that isn't even hers. That's real strength. If my husband did this, I would have burned his clothes in the yard. She's better than me. The narrative was shifting. I could feel it happening in real time. My phone rang. Victoria. What did you just do? Her voice was sharp, angry. You made yourself the hero. You made me look like a mother who cares about her daughter, I interrupted. Which you are. But Victoria, if you try to destroy Julian now, you won't look like a victim anymore. You'll look vindictive. Like you're using Lily as a weapon. And that won't play well in custody court. Silence. Then, what do you want? To meet. Tomorrow. Noon. Your lawyer, my lawyer, and us. I pulled up the trust fund outline Simone was drafting. I have a proposal. One that gets you what you need without burning everything down. I already told you what I need. You told me what you want. But what Lily needs is a father who actually shows up. And I'm prepared to make that happen. I paused. The trust fund will be substantial. Enough for private school, college, healthcare, everything. But it comes with strings, custody arrangements, mandatory involvement, consequences if Julian tries to disappear. You're negotiating my daughter's future without me. I'm offering you a better deal than revenge, I corrected. Revenge feels good for a month. Security lasts 18 years. Maybe longer, if we structure it right. Another pause. I could hear her breathing, thinking, calculating. Why? She finally asked. Why help me at all? Because that baby didn't ask to be born into this mess. I looked out at Manhattan, starting to glow with sunrise. And because I know what it's like to grow up without resources, without options. My daughter, if I ever have one, I'd want someone to protect her the way I'm trying to protect Lily. The honesty surprised us both. Noon, Victoria said quietly. But Naomi? If this is some trick, if you're trying to manipulate me into going easy on Julian, then you can burn the deal and we'll all go down together, I finished. But I don't think that's what you want. I think you want your daughter to have a father. I think you want stability. And I think you're smart enough to recognize a good deal when you hear one. We'll see. She hung up. I set down my phone and allowed myself exactly 60 seconds to feel everything I'd been holding back. The betrayal. The humiliation. The grief of watching my marriage implode in real time. Then I wiped my eyes, fixed my makeup, and got back to work. Noon came faster than expected. Simone arrived first, carrying a briefcase full of documents and a look that said she hadn't slept either. Victoria arrived next with her lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Winters who'd made her name destroying wealthy men in divorce court. We sat in my conference room, Manhattan stretched out below us, and I laid out my terms. The trust fund starts at $20 million, I said, sliding the documents across the table. Inflation adjusted, with annual contributions from Julian's income. That's education, healthcare, housing, everything Lily needs through age 25. Patricia whistled. That's generous. That's strategic, I corrected. Because here's the catch, Julian doesn't just write checks. He shows up. Mandatory custody arrangements, 2 weekends a month minimum, alternating holidays, summer visitation. If he misses more than 3 scheduled visits per year without emergency cause, the trust fund increases by $5 million. Victoria blinked. You're incentivizing him to be a bad father. I'm making absence expensive, I said. Julian is lazy when it comes to emotional labor. But he's not lazy about money. If every missed soccer game costs him $100,000, he'll show up to the soccer game. Simone added, we're also proposing mandatory family therapy. Julian, Victoria, and Lily, with a licensed mediator. The goal is to establish healthy co-parenting patterns. You've thought of everything, Patricia said, flipping through the documents. That's what I do. I met Victoria's eyes. But here's what I need from you. You drop any plans to sabotage the Ashford Capital merger. The deal goes through as planned. In return, Julian agrees to these terms, and I paused. I publicly support this arrangement. I become the woman who helped broker peace, who put a child's needs above her own hurt. And your marriage? Victoria asked quietly, is none of your concern. I kept my voice level. What happens between Julian and me is separate from what's best for Lily. Whatever I decide about my marriage, Lily will be taken care of. That's the deal. Victoria looked at her lawyer, some silent communication passing between them. Then back at me. And if Julian refuses these terms? Then you destroy the merger, take him to court, and we all lose. I leaned forward. But Victoria, this is better. This is guaranteed money, guaranteed involvement, guaranteed security. Court is a gamble. This is a sure thing. $20 million. Victoria said it like she was testing the words. And he has to actually be a father. Or pay more for the privilege of being absent, Simone confirmed. Patricia made a few notes. I'll need to review this more thoroughly, but preliminarily, this is actually quite good. Better than what we'd likely get in court, especially given the optics of tonight. Because Naomi's statement made me look like I'm using Lily as a weapon, Victoria said, but there was no heat in it. Just acknowledgement. I made us both look like women trying to do right by a child, I corrected. The villain is Julian. And he'll stay the villain unless he accepts these terms and proves he can be better. Victoria stood, moved to the window. For a long moment, she just stared out at the city. Then, why did you marry him? The question caught me off guard. What? Julian. Why did you marry him? She turned to face me. You're brilliant, successful, beautiful. You could have had anyone. Why him? I thought about lying. About giving some polished answer about love and compatibility. But something in Victoria's expression, genuine curiosity, maybe even respect, made me tell the truth. Because he made me feel safe, I said quietly. I grew up fighting for everything. Fighting to be seen, to be heard, to be valued. And Julian, he saw me immediately. Valued me without question. Made me feel like I could finally stop fighting. I laughed. Bitter. Turns out, that was naive. No. Victoria shook her head. That was human. We all want to feel safe. That's why I married him too. She paused. And that's why I want these terms in writing. Because I'm tired of fighting too. Tired of wondering if Lily will have enough. If I'll have enough. So we have a deal? I asked. We have a deal. Victoria extended her hand. Pending Julian's agreement, of course. I shook it, feeling the strange symmetry of the moment. Two women who'd loved the same man, protecting the child he created out of that love. I'll talk to him this afternoon, I said. Present the terms. He'll resist at first. Julian hates being told what to do. But he'll accept. Because the alternative is losing everything. And what about you? Victoria asked. What do you get out of this? I smiled, and it felt like the first real smile I'd managed since last night. I get to win. And sometimes, that's enough. 3 hours later, I sat across from Julian in our penthouse apartment. He looked like he hadn't slept, still wearing yesterday's tuxedo shirt, stubble darkening his jaw, eyes red-rimmed. Naomi. He stood when I entered, relief flooding his face. Thank God. I've been trying to reach you. Sit down. I set my briefcase on the table. We need to talk. He Saturday. Did you see your statement? It's everywhere. People are seeing the truth, I interrupted. That you knew about Victoria's messages. That you hid a potential child from me. That you're a coward. He flinched. That's not fair. Fair. I laughed. Julian, you let me throw you a birthday party while knowing your ex-wife might show up with your baby. You let me stand there in front of everyone we know, completely blindsided. Don't talk to me about fair. I didn't know she'd do that. But you knew something was coming. I pulled out the trust fund documents. And now, you're going to make it right. He looked at the papers, confusion crossing his face. What is this? Your daughter's future. I walked him through every term, every clause, every consequence. Watched his expression shift from confusion to understanding to something like horror. $20 million. His voice cracked. Naomi, that's a fraction of what you'll make from the Ashford merger, I said calmly. Which, by the way, only happens if you sign these documents. Victoria is willing to let the deal proceed, but only if Lily is protected. You talked to Victoria. It wasn't a question. I've talked to everyone who matters. The lawyers, the accountants, the mediators. This is done, Julian. The only question is whether you sign willingly or whether I make your refusal very, very public. He stared at me like I was a stranger. Who are you right now? I'm the woman you married, I said. The one who built a career on managing crises and controlling narratives. You've just never been on the receiving end before. I leaned back. Sign the papers, Julian. Be a father to Lily. Fulfill your responsibilities like an adult. And us. His voice was small. What happens to us? I'd been dreading this question. Had turned it over in my mind all night, weighing love against betrayal, partnership against humiliation. I don't know yet, I admitted. Right now, I'm angry, hurt, and I'm not sure I can forgive you for making me look like a fool. But that's separate from this. I tapped the documents. This is about Lily, not about us. I love you, he whispered. Naomi, I love you so much. I know I screwed up, but please. Love isn't enough. The words hurt to say. Love without trust, without honesty, without respect? That's just sentiment. And I need more than sentiment to build a life on. I stood, leaving the documents on the table. You have until 5 p.m. to sign. After that, I release a second statement detailing exactly how long you knew and how deliberately you hid it. Your choice. I was halfway to the door when his voice stopped me. I'm sorry. He was crying now, tears streaming down his face. I'm so sorry, Naomi. You deserved better. You deserved the truth. Yes, I said simply. I did. Then I walked out, leaving him with the wreckage of what we'd built and the blueprint for what he needed to become. At 4:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. A photo from Julian's lawyer, signed documents. Every page, every clause, every consequence accepted. I forwarded it to Victoria, Simone, and Patricia. Then I allowed myself one moment of triumph before getting back to work. Because this wasn't over. The paternity test results would come tomorrow. The media would dissect every detail. My clients would watch to see how I handled my own crisis. But I'd done something. I'd taken the worst moment of my life and turned it into protection for a child who needed it. I'd outmaneuvered both Victoria and Julian, secured my reputation, and proven that even in humiliation, I could win. The question now was, what did I do next? 72 hours after the birthday party that broke my life open, I stood in my office watching the sun set over Manhattan. The paternity test results had arrived that morning, sealed in a manila envelope that sat on my desk like a loaded gun. I hadn't opened it yet. Because once I did, everything became real. Irreversible. The speculation would end, and the consequences would begin. My phone buzzed. Simone, have you looked yet? Me, no. Simone, want me to come over? Me, I need to do this alone. I picked up the envelope, feeling its weight. Inside was the scientific proof of Julian's betrayal, or his innocence. Though we both knew which way it would fall. I'd seen his face when he looked at Lily. Had watched recognition dawn in his eyes. The envelope tore easily. Paternity test results alleged father, Julian Marcus Sterling child, Lily Victoria Ashford probability of paternity, 99.97%. I set the paper down carefully, as if sudden movements might shatter what little composure I had left. 99.97%. As close to certainty as science could offer. Julian had a daughter. A 3-month-old baby girl who would grow up knowing her father had tried to pretend she didn't exist. Who would someday learn that her parents' relationship had been reduced to legal documents and mandatory visitation schedules. My phone rang. Julian. I almost didn't answer. But cowardice had been his mistake, not mine. I saw the results, he said without preamble. His voice was hollow. My lawyer forwarded them an hour ago. Then you know. Yeah. A long pause. I have a daughter. You've had a daughter for 3 months, I corrected. You just didn't want to acknowledge it. Naomi. I'm not interested in apologies right now, Julian. I'm interested in what happens next. I moved to my window, watching traffic crawl through Midtown. The trust fund is established. The custody schedule starts next week. Victoria's lawyer has already filed the official paperwork. And us. The question I'd been avoiding. Where do we go from here? I'd spent the last 3 days thinking about this. Analyzing it from every angle. Weighing every option. Stay and rebuild? Leave with my dignity intact? Something in between? I need time, I said finally. Real time. Not days or weeks. Months. Maybe longer. How much longer? I don't know. The honesty felt like relief. Right now, when I look at you, all I see is the man who lied to me. Who let me be humiliated in front of everyone I know. Who chose cowardice over partnership. I know. His voice cracked. I know, and I hate myself for it. But Naomi, I love you. That hasn't changed. Love isn't the problem. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass. Trust is the problem. Respect is the problem. And I'm not sure those things can be rebuilt. So what are you saying? You want a divorce? Did I? The question had haunted me for 3 days. Divorce meant admitting defeat, acknowledging that the fairy tale I'd believed in was just another lie. But staying meant accepting betrayal, teaching him that consequences had limits. I'm saying I want space, I said. I'm saying you need to move into your office apartment for a while. I'm saying we separate our lives and see what's left when the dust settles. A trial separation. A necessary one. I turned from the window. You need to figure out how to be a father, Julian. How to show up for Lily, for Victoria, for the mess you created. And I need to figure out who I am without you. Without this marriage that's defined me for 2 years. But we're not done. He sounded desperate. Young. We're not over. I don't know what we are, I admitted. Right now, we're 2 people who loved each other once. Whether we can love each other again, honestly, completely, that remains to be seen. He was quiet for a long time. Then, okay. I'll move out this weekend. Give you space. Whatever you need. Thank you. Naomi. He paused. For what it's worth, you're handling this with more grace than I deserve. The way you protected Lily, the way you structured everything, you're remarkable. I'm sorry it took me losing you to really see it. The compliment hurt more than anger would have. Because it was true, and it was too late, and it was everything I'd needed to hear 3 months ago when this all started. Goodbye, Julian. I hung up before he could respond. The media loved the narrative I'd created. Within a week, I was the subject of 3 major profiles: New York Times, Vanity Fair, and a surprisingly thoughtful piece in The Atlantic about Grace under pressure. Naomi Sterling could have destroyed her husband, the Times article read. Instead, she built something better, a framework for protecting an innocent child while holding all parties accountable. In an age of scorched-earth divorces and public feuds, Sterling's approach feels almost revolutionary: strategic compassion. My phone rang constantly. New clients, speaking requests, even a book deal offer. Apparently, having your life implode on social media was excellent marketing, provided you controlled the narrative. But the call that mattered most came 2 weeks after the paternity results. Naomi, it's Victoria. I'd been expecting this. How can I help you? I wanted to say thank you. She sounded different, softer, less defensive. Julian came for his first official visit yesterday. He was terrified, completely out of his depth. But he showed up. And he held Lily, and he tried. Something in my chest loosened. That's good. It's more than good. It's what I wanted all along. Victoria paused. I know I handled this badly. The birthday party, the drama, I was angry and scared and I wanted him to hurt the way I was hurting. But what you did, the way you structured everything, you gave Lily something I couldn't. You gave her a father who has to show up. That was the point, I said quietly. I know. And I'm grateful. Another pause. For what it's worth, I think you should give him another chance. Not now, maybe not for a while. But eventually. He's not a bad man, Naomi. He's just a man who made terrible choices. So did you, I pointed out. So did I, she agreed. But we're both trying to do better now. Maybe that's all any of us can do. Keep trying, keep showing up, keep protecting the people who need us. After we hung up, I sat with her words. Trying to do better. It sounded simple, but it was everything, wasn't it? The difference between destruction and growth. Between revenge and justice. I'd chosen justice. And somehow, that choice had transformed all of us. 6 months after the birthday party, I sat in a coffee shop in Brooklyn, watching Simone's daughter play in the corner. My best friend studied me over her latte, eyes narrowed. You look different, she said. Different how? Lighter. Like you're not carrying the world on your shoulders anymore. She smiled. It's nice to see. I'd spent the last 6 months rebuilding. Not my marriage, that was still in limbo, still undefined. But myself. I'd gone to therapy, processed the betrayal, learned to separate Julian's failures from my worth. I'd traveled, 2 weeks in Italy, solo, remembering what it felt like to exist without anyone's expectations weighing on me. And I'd worked. God, had I worked. My firm had doubled in size, taking on clients who needed crisis management, reputation repair, second chances. I'd become the woman who helped people rebuild after their worst moments, because I knew intimately what that required. Julian asked to meet for coffee, I said, stirring my cappuccino. Next week. Simone raised an eyebrow. And I said yes. I looked up at her. Not because I've forgiven him. Not because I'm ready to go back to how things were. But because I'm curious who he's become in these 6 months. That's healthy, Simone said. Mature. Very evolved of you. Or maybe I just miss him. The admission surprised me. Not the man who lied to me, but the man I thought he was. The one who made me laugh, who believed in my work, who made me feel less alone in this ridiculous city. Maybe he can be that man again, Simone offered. People change. God knows you have. She was right. I had changed. I was sharper now, more cautious. But also stronger. More certain of who I was without a man's validation defining me. More aware of my worth. How's Lily? Simone asked. I pulled out my phone, showed her the photo Julian had sent last week. Him holding his daughter at a park, both of them laughing at something off camera. He looked different too, less polished, more present. Like fatherhood was sanding down his edges, revealing someone softer underneath. She's beautiful, I said. And he's actually showing up. Every scheduled visit, plus extras. He sends me updates sometimes, like he wants me to know he's trying. That's sweet. It's complicated. I put the phone away. Because part of me wants to celebrate his growth. But another part is still angry that it took losing me for him to become the man he should have been all along. Both things can be true, Simone said gently. You can be proud of how far he's come while still being hurt by how far he had to fall. What would you do? If your partner showed real change after real consequences, would you give them a second chance? Or are some betrayals too deep to forgive? Let me know in the comments. Your perspective might help someone else navigate their own complicated situation. The coffee shop Julian chose was deliberately neutral, a place neither of us had been before, in a neighborhood that belonged to neither of our histories. Smart. He'd learned something about symbolism. He was already there when I arrived, sitting in the corner booth, looking nervous in a way I'd rarely seen. No designer suit today, just jeans and a sweater that made him look younger, more vulnerable. "Hi," he said, standing as I approached. "Thanks for coming."
"Hi."
I slid into the booth across from him, keeping the table between us. Physical distance as metaphor. For a moment, we just looked at each other. 6 months of separation, of growth, of becoming different people than we'd been at that birthday party. "You look good," he said finally. "Really good. Happy." "I am happy." It was true. "Turns out, I don't need you to be okay." He flinched but nodded. "I know. That's good. That's how it should be." He twisted his coffee cup. "I've been going to therapy. Individual sessions, plus the family therapy with Victoria and Lily." I heard. Victoria mentioned it. "You talk to Victoria?" Surprise crossed his face. "Sometimes. We have a shared interest in making sure Lily is taken care of." I paused. "And honestly, she's not the villain I thought she was. She's just a woman who got hurt and lashed out. I understand that better now." Julian absorbed this. "My therapist says I have a pattern of avoiding difficult conversations, of hiding from problems instead of facing them." He looked up at me. "She says it probably started in childhood, with my parents' divorce. How I learned to make myself invisible during conflicts." "That's insightful," I said carefully. "But Julian, understanding why you did it doesn't change that you did. Doesn't erase the consequences." "I know." He leaned forward. "Naomi, I'm not here to ask you to come back. I'm not even here to ask for forgiveness, because I know I don't deserve it yet. Maybe ever." "Then why are we here?" "Because I wanted you to know that you changed my life." His eyes were bright. "Not just by protecting Lily or by handling everything with such grace, but by refusing to accept my bullshit. By walking away instead of enabling me. By showing me what real strength looks like." Something in my chest tightened. "Julian. Let me finish." He took a breath. "Being a father to Lily, actually showing up, actually being present, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. And also, the most important. Every time I hold her, every time I see Victoria working so hard to give her a good life, I'm reminded of how close I came to abandoning both of them. To being the kind of man my own father was." "But you didn't," I said quietly. "You stepped up. Maybe not in the way you should have, but eventually, you did. Because you didn't give me a choice." He smiled sadly. "You built a cage of consequences so elegant I didn't even realize I was trapped until I was already becoming a better person." "That wasn't a cage," I corrected. "That was a framework. A structure for you to grow within." "Same thing, maybe." He reached across the table, not quite touching my hand but close. "I'm different now, Naomi. Not perfect. God knows I'll never be perfect. But different. Better. More honest. With myself and others. And I wanted you to see that. To know that your decision to walk away wasn't for nothing." I looked at his hand, so close to mine. Remembered all the times we'd held hands before, at galas, in our bed, walking through Central Park on Sunday mornings. Remembered how safe I'd felt, how loved. But safety built on lies wasn't real safety. And love without honesty was just a beautiful cage. I'm glad you're growing, I said. Genuinely. Watching you become a father, seeing you actually try, it means something. But. He heard the word I hadn't said. But I don't know if it's enough. I finally pulled my hand back, created distance again. You hurt me, Julian. Deeply. And while I understand why, while I can even forgive the fear that made you hide, I can't forget. Can't unknow what it felt like to stand in that ballroom and realize my entire marriage was built on a mission. I understand. He nodded, eyes glistening. I do. And I'm not asking you to forget. Just, maybe, someday, asking you to try again. To see if the man I'm becoming is someone you could love. Really love, with full knowledge of all my flaws. Maybe, I said. Someday. But not today. Not today, he agreed. But maybe tomorrow. Or next month. Or next year. I'll wait, Naomi. As long as it takes. Don't wait, I said gently. Live. Grow. Be the father Lily deserves. And if our paths are meant to cross again, if we're meant to find our way back to each other, it'll happen naturally. Not because you waited, but because we both became people capable of the relationship we should have had all along. He smiled through tears. When did you get so wise? When you forced me to become stronger than I ever thought possible. I stood, gathering my purse. Thank you for the coffee. And Julian? Thank you for trying. Keep doing that. I walked out of the coffee shop into crisp autumn air, feeling lighter than I had in months. Maybe years. Behind me, I'd left a man learning to be better. Ahead of me stretched a future I'd built entirely on my own terms. Successful, independent, unafraid. And somewhere in between was the possibility that love could be rebuilt. Not on the ashes of what we'd lost, but on the foundation of who we'd become. 1 year after the birthday party, I stood in a different ballroom. Different city, different celebration, different woman. The National Association of Professional Women had named me their Person of the Year, recognizing not just my business success but my handling of personal crisis with grace, intelligence, and an unwavering commitment to doing what's right. The irony wasn't lost on me, being celebrated for the worst moment of my life. But I'd learned something in the past year. It's not the crisis that defines you. It's what you build from the wreckage. I'd built an empire. My firm now had offices in 3 cities, a waiting list of clients, and a reputation for turning disasters into triumphs. I'd written a book, Strategic Compassion, Leading Through Crisis, that had somehow ended up on the bestseller list. I'd become the woman other women called when their lives exploded, when they needed to rebuild with dignity intact. And I'd done it all without Julian. Well, mostly without him. We'd had coffee 3 more times over the past year. Slow, careful conversations where we'd learned to be friends, or something like friends. I'd watched him transform into a devoted father, seen the way Lily lit up when he entered a room. Heard from Victoria that he never missed a visit, that he'd even started reading parenting books. You should be proud, Victoria had told me last month. What you set in motion, it changed all of us. Maybe. Or maybe we'd all just been forced to become the people we should have been all along. Ms. Sterling. A voice pulled me from my thoughts. The event coordinator, smiling. You're on in 5 minutes. I nodded, checking my reflection one last time. Emerald gown this time, hair swept up, diamonds at my throat. I looked like success. Like power. Like a woman who'd survived her worst nightmare and emerged golden. But underneath the polish, I was still just Naomi Washington from Detroit's East Side. Still the girl who'd fought for everything. The difference was, now I knew that fight was worth it. I walked to the stage wings, waited for my introduction. And there, in the front row, I saw him. Julian. Applauding with everyone else, pride evident on his face. Our eyes met across the crowded ballroom. He smiled, not the charming smile from before, but something quieter. More real. A smile that said I see you. I'm proud of you. Thank you for saving me from myself. I smiled back. Not forgiveness. Exactly. Not reconciliation. But acknowledgement. Gratitude for the growth we'd both achieved through pain. Maybe that was enough. Maybe it would always be enough. Or maybe, someday, it would be the beginning of something new. Ladies and gentlemen, the MC announced, "Please welcome our Person of the Year, Naomi Sterling." The applause was thunderous as I walked onto that stage. Not as someone's wife. Not as a woman defined by her husband's betrayal. But as myself, brilliant, powerful, and finally, completely free. I stepped up to the microphone and began to speak. A year ago, I stood in a ballroom not unlike this one, watching my carefully constructed life fall apart in real time. I paused, letting the moment breathe. And I thought it was the end of my story. Turns out, it was just the beginning of a better one. 18 months later. The text came on a Tuesday. It's a girl. I stared at my phone, reading the message 3 times before the meaning sank in. Then I was moving, grabbing my keys, calling my assistant to cancel my afternoon meetings. The hospital was across town, but traffic parted like I had sirens. Or maybe I was just lucky. Julian was in the waiting room, pacing. He looked up when I entered, relief flooding his face. "You came," he said. Of course I came. I moved toward him, and for the first time in 18 months, let him hug me. Really hug me, the way he used to. "How is she?" "Perfect. 8 pounds, 3 ounces. Victoria says she has my eyes." He pulled back, laughing through tears. "I have 2 daughters now, Naomi." "2? You do?" I smiled. "And you're going to be amazing with both of them." "I hope so." He wiped his eyes. "I want to do this right. Be present from the beginning this time, not just show up when forced to." "You will." I meant it. "You've changed, Julian. Really changed." "We both have." He looked at me carefully. "You're seeing someone, right? That tech entrepreneur from the gala last month." News traveled fast in our circles. Casually. Nothing serious. But happy. Very. And I was. Marcus, yes, I'd finally dated someone with that name. Was kind, honest, and had no ex-wives or secret children. We took things slow, built trust carefully. It was nice. Uncomplicated. Everything Julian and I had never been. "Good," Julian said. "You deserve happy. You deserve everything." A nurse appeared. "Mr. Sterling? Your wife is asking for you." And she said. The nurse glanced at me, confused. "She said Naomi could come too, if she wants." I looked at Julian, surprised. "Victoria said you should meet her," he explained. "The new baby. Said it felt right, after everything. After everything. After the birthday party that destroyed us. After the framework that rebuilt us. After 18 months of growth and grace and learning to be better. I'd like that," I said. We walked together to Victoria's room, Julian, me, and the strange, beautiful friendship we'd forged from wreckage. Victoria looked exhausted but radiant, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in pink. "Naomi." She smiled. "I'm glad you came." "Congratulations." I moved closer, looking down at the baby's perfect face. Dark hair, blue eyes, delicate features. "She's beautiful." "Want to hold her?" Victoria offered. I hesitated, then carefully took the infant into my arms. She was warm, solid, real. A new life, a new beginning. Proof that even from our worst moments, something beautiful could grow. "What's her name?" I asked. Victoria looked at Julian, some silent communication passing between them. Then back at me. "Grace," she said softly. "Her name is Grace." I looked up, vision blurring. Grace. For what I'd shown them. For what we'd all learned. For the possibility of forgiveness, even when it seemed impossible. "It's perfect," I whispered. And standing there, holding a baby named for the choice I'd made, to protect instead of destroy, to build instead of burn, I understood something fundamental. Revenge wasn't about making people pay. It was about making them better. About turning pain into growth, crisis into opportunity, endings into beginnings. I'd gotten my revenge, after all. Just not the kind Victoria had originally wanted. I'd transformed us all. Made us face our worst selves and become our best ones. Turned a scandal into a framework for healing. Turned betrayal into grace. That was power. Real power. And as I handed baby Grace back to her mother, as I watched Julian's eyes fill with love for his family. Both families. I felt something I hadn't felt since before that birthday party. Peace. Not because everything was perfect. Not because all was forgiven. But because I'd survived. I'd thrived. And I'd done it without losing myself in the process. Thank you, Victoria said quietly. For everything. Thank you, I replied. For teaching me that revenge doesn't have to mean destruction. Sometimes, the best revenge is just becoming better than you were. I left them there, Julian, Victoria, Lily, and baby Grace, a family rebuilt from broken pieces. Different than what any of us had imagined, but real. Honest. Built on truth instead of lies. And I walked out of that hospital into crisp evening air, pulled out my phone, and texted Marcus, "Dinner tonight? I have a story to tell you." His response was immediate. "Can't wait. Your stories are my favorite." I smiled, hailed a cab, and headed toward my future. A future I'd built myself, on my terms, with my rules. A future where I was the hero of my own story, not just a supporting character in someone else's. And as Manhattan glowed around me, steel and glass and endless possibility, I understood the truth Victoria had offered me that night 18 months ago. She'd said I could burn Julian's world down. But I'd done something better. I'd rebuilt it. Rebuilt all of us. And in the process, I discovered that the best revenge isn't destruction. It's transformation. It's grace. What did you think of Naomi's journey? Have you ever had to choose between revenge and grace? Share your thoughts below. I love hearing how these stories resonate with your own experiences. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more emotional storytelling that explores the complexity of love, betrayal, and redemption. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't fighting back. It's building something better from the ruins. Naomi Sterling didn't just survive her humiliation. She transformed it into power, protected an innocent child, and became the architect of her own destiny. That's not just revenge. That's revolution. Thank you for experiencing this journey with me. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it.